That's right, I did.
You did. Actually, you named it.
I did the most important work, naming it. You did all that other work for that person.
I did it.
Actually making it work is still back.
I did it. I started on a Wednesday, and I had it ready on Friday. That's a 2-day process. For my other work that I teach. I use plugin for calling out students, like the price of trying to, but students do not think about it as a prize.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, call it.
So there's a price front too now?
Oh, teachers are not.
Teachers pet.
That's a good one.
I like that. Does it still meet up API hook-in or?
It's for instruction. We should do a Presitron, another Presitron meetup.
The hack night?
Or just see if somebody wants to contribute. We should do one where it's, got persistence and all that stuff, a year or two.
Yeah.
Something else.
All right, we're trying to get started here.
I used to.
Okay, welcome. We're going to get started now. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to go through the normal spiel like I do every month. Sponsors, looking for work, office presenters. And then we'll get to the main presentation. So for our agenda afterwards, we do our raffle for anyone that's new. So after the main presentation, make sure you hang around. And if you RSVP yes to the meetup tonight, you'll get entered into our raffle, and we have a couple of prizes to give away. So sponsors, Virtual for the space. We have SDG for the food and the drink tonight. They had a sponsor here, or they had a rep here, but he had to take off. But SDG, it's a pretty cool local consulting firm. They hire full stack developers. They focus on .NET, but they also hire Java developers, front-end developers too. So if you are looking for a job, make sure you reach out. They have a phone number on their website, solutiondesign.com. So they sponsored the food and the drink, so thanks guys, appreciate it. We do our hiring looking for work segment at the beginning of every meetup. So is anybody looking for work? You can get up right now and announce it to the group. Chances are there's someone that's looking for a hire too. So yeah, go ahead.
So my name's Josh. I am actually new to Minneapolis. I moved here from Utah. Just looking for a job. My skills are in Angular, Node. That's usually the stack I've been using SQL, but I know MongoDB.
Welcome to Minnesota.
Thanks.
Welcome. Anybody else? And we have an announcement that we need to make to Virtual. So looking for
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm Central. I'm with Virtual from day one, which is 7 years. But we're still a startup as part of Health Partners. That's a $6 billion organization, but Virtual is still a startup, but it's growing. We're looking for a senior. Can you bring the page, John? We're looking for a senior Angular Grace. It's called an Angular Java developer, actually. The cool thing about this position is you don't need to be qualified for this. If you know joke behind this. If you know somebody, you don't have to work for Health Partners to get the referral bonus of $1,000.
Yeah, we have this referral bonus.
Yeah. So as part of this group, we just announced it like an hour ago in the website. So if you know somebody, you can nominate yourself and apply, I guess. And get the $1,000.
There you go.
Apart working for Virtual, you get the benefits of Health Partners. which is probably one of the best out here in town. Apart from the health benefits and the 401k, 7.5% match and HSA 50% match. So you can look at it all up on the website. So if you know somebody, just email it or talk to John or me or if you.
I know my friend Josh. I don't know if he knows Java, but I'd like to.
I'm teaching myself.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so go to careers.virtual.com for the full job listing, and there's a PDF with the referral bonus information.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Central. Okay, anyone else looking for work or hired, or looking for hire? Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Enrique Ortega. I'm a software engineer over at Calabrio. We work in downtown Minneapolis, working in call center suite software. For what we are looking for, usually mid to senior level JavaScript engineers, but we'll take all resumes. You never know what can happen. But yeah, so our stack is currently Angular and Dojo. We are moving to strictly Angular soon. We're doing a rewrite relatively soon. There's been some interesting stuff happening in the company, but yeah, if you wanted to get more information or something, or give me a high five, give me a beer, something. I can talk to you afterwards. Kidding.
Yeah, so anyone else looking for hire, looking for work? Yeah, go right ahead.
My name is Jason, and this is kind of interesting. My wife and I are relocating to Eugene, Oregon. I work for a company that builds websites in C# and Angular, and then also software in WPF and C#. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas about Oregon, but thank you.
You never know, right?
John?
There's a couple of.
Yes. Who was it over here?
Hi, my name is Scott Croyer. I work at MedHub in Minneapolis. Currently in Northeast, 2 weeks from now, in downtown. We do software for healthcare and education, medical schools and pharmacy schools and nursing schools. And about mid-April, we're going to be hiring a senior Angular 2, obviously, not necessarily a senior in Angular 2, an Angular 2 and .NET Core developer. And then that will be followed around mid-July, with an additional 3 developers. The first one, we're looking for them to be quite senior. The next 3 will be a little bit more mid-level. And the project is basically rewriting the complete application of the company, which was an old Cold Fusion application. It's not a straight refactor though, so you don't have to look at Cold Fusion. It's being all redesigned, so there'll be fresh specs on everything. If you have any interest or know anybody who might be interested.
Awesome, thank you. You too?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, my name's Jason Sundy. It's my first time standing up and saying that I'm looking for work. I just graduated from Prime Academy recently, where I learned lead stack, and I'm starting to learn some Java. So if anybody's interested, talk to me.
Anyone else? Okay. Also point out while I'm walking over, we do have a message board on our meetup site where you can also post these positions, where we'll reach out to our entire 1,000 members. Yeah.
So Live Touch, we're looking for lead Java developers and application architects. So we're doing Angular 2 on front end, Rails and Spring Boot on the back end. We're also looking at AWS. Go to the Live Touch careers page.
All right.
My name is Jeremy. I work for the Minnesota Twins, and we're looking for developers to help with the baseball systems and analytics for Angular, Angular 2, C#, for mobile devs as well as agri-tech stuff. So we're looking for build the baseball team live. So if anyone's interested.
Cool. Anybody else? That was it. Good place to network.
So I'm Dale. Later on, you'll see the Prizatron. And I guess I'm looking for volunteers to work on an open source project to rewrite Prizatron. To have Mongo backend. Super easy, small stuff, Angular 2, full TDD, that kind of stuff. Couple of days worth of work, but if anybody wants to, like has recently graduated from Prime Academy or something, and has some extra time, wants something on their resume, that would work. But yeah, just a couple of days worth of stuff, I think would do it.
Cool. All right.
I would gladly help mentor anyone who would like to do that. I just haven't found the time to do it myself.
Thanks, Will.
Even better.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah, that's it. Okay. So as always, call for presenters if you'd like to speak at a future Angular MN meetup. We do the first Wednesday of the month, as you all know. So we're looking for the next few months for presenters. So please contact me or post a proposal on our meetup.com/AngularMen message board. We have a special slot carved out for presentation proposals. With that said, we're going to go into other announcements and lightning talks, and then we will get to the main presentation. Does anyone have either of those, an announcement or a lightning talk? Just general announcements or general lightning talks? No? Okay, I think we're going to get to our main presentation then. Adam, take it away. Give us a second to switch to the AV. Get his computer on the projector, and we will get underway. All right, now I'm going to give you presenter. And I'm going to mute.
Unmuted. All right, sweet. Everyone hear me good? All right, awesome. All right, guys, so I'm Adam Bezemek. I'm a front-end developer here at Virtual. I've been here about 5 years, I think, to the day. When people ask me what I do, I usually tell them that I make the web look pretty. I always get a kick out of that. And that's kind of what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. I'm going to share some things with you guys about atomic design. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Maybe share hands on who's heard of atomic design. Sweet, a few, good. All right, well, I'll start by giving credit where credit's due. I will tell you that it all started with this guy. Wait, no, my bad. This guy, there we go. All right, so this is Brad Frost. He's really the brains behind what we call atomic design. But hold on to that thought for a minute, because first I want to tell you a little story. So once upon a time, there were these things called books, okay? And these books, they consisted of pages, right? Do you guys remember these? Okay. Yeah, so you'd turn them and like you'd cut your finger, you'd rip a page as you went, deeper into the book. And then when you had to come back to it, you'd have to like, dog ear a corner because you didn't know where you were, so you didn't want to lose your spot in the book. They were pretty terrible, and thankfully we don't have them anymore. And you guys can all thank this guy for that, right? Right? Al Gore, you've met on the internet, good guy. So the problem is now today we have these pages, because somehow this concept of pages is carried over into the web. It's a common thing that we've heard as designers and developers. We use that term in vocabulary all the time. Ever since those good old days of, GeoCities and the Ralph Macchio homepage. To be honest, the Ralph Macchio homepage probably looked pretty good on this machine, right? Because I remember these. Sadly, this is no longer the web we work with. That idea of pixel perfect design and everything looking exactly the same, it's no longer the case. This is a lot more like our reality. You guys all have cell phones, tablets, they're all sitting in your pockets right now. And if you look at them, you look at a laptop, you look at a mobile device, you look at a tablet, you know immediately that you can't make these, designs, these page designs that we see, render the same across all these different devices. We live in a sea of smartphones, dumb phones, MacBooks, notebooks, web TVs, game consoles, and a whole bunch of other things that can access the web. And who knows what's next, right? So as designers, developers, we're forced to build these applications and interfaces that are, supposed to work across all these devices. However, our processes haven't quite caught up yet. So these right here, these are what we show our stakeholders as our designs. And as developers, this is what we receive from our designers. And we're asked to create responsive interfaces out of them. This is a crazy waste of time. Instead, what we need to do is we need to blow these things up, right? We need to see the pieces tumbling down. And so we can stop and think for a minute. What are our interfaces really made out of? What Lego pieces are important to us? How can we assemble these Lego pieces to assemble our interfaces and build really rich interactive experiences? And a lot of us do this already, right? We'll take a page, we'll deconstruct it, pull it apart, and we'll put it back together again. Problem is with this approach, our gaze remains fixed on the final product, right? We're trying to make that Lego truck. Rather than trying to take a look at what our underlying patterns are and what they're comprised of in our final UIs. However, if we take some time, we step back, try to organize these pieces to make our final creations, it allows us to, to work more deliberately and in a more efficient manner. So we can take, the same block, same set of Lego pieces, and we can create 3 different, really cool Lego cars, right? And this is nothing new to us, right? We've seen this type of modularity and its effectiveness, for over many years. Seeing how this is an Angular meetup, I'm certain, many of you are thinking right now, components, right? They're going to solve everything. Which is great. They might. We'll see what happens. But what's important is we need to start thinking about this process earlier. We need to think about in early design stages. We need to have a methodology that integrates with our workflow. Thankfully, we're starting to see a shift in the industry, and people are starting to think about design systems rather than just pages. And through this shift, there've been a lot of different approaches, right? We're trying to execute responsive web designs, and one of these approaches is called style tiles. Style tiles show us an abstract view of a very specific component or interface. You can experiment and compare your designs and figure out what feels right. You start to get a feel for color, typography, and kind of the overall mood of what an interface could look like. There's this company called Sparkbox, and they actually took the idea of style tiles and took it a step further. They started creating style prototypes. This way you could actually see what interface might look like in the browser instead of just in a PDF or a PSD. And they're pretty cool, right? They break down and highlight a few important pieces of the UI. You can see things like logos, headlines, subheads. You can also start to see the interactions that you'll have in the browser, right? You can see hover states, transitions, animations. Well, if we can create style prototypes in the browser, why don't we just create a whole style guide in the browser? We can create a standalone website, and they'd be pretty cool, right? They're really helpful. They promote consistency, cohesion. They make things easier to test. They enhance our workflows. They create a shared vocabulary for all of us to talk about and talk with BAs with. And they're a really useful reference. And there's actually quite a few of them out there. Brett Janker created this thing called Style Guide Boilerplate, right? So you can go to GitHub, check it out, pull it down, and you can start, kind of creating these colors and base HTML elements that suit your needs. Paul Robert Lloyd created Bare Bones, which is an extension of Pattern Primer. If you've seen Pattern Primer before, it's pretty cool, and it really gives you kind of like this inventory of patterns that you can start using in your interfaces. Additionally, many companies are already releasing their style guides into the wild. Yelp has released theirs, and it's really cool. It not only showcases their web styles, but it also showcases like their mobile apps and their brand styles as well. MailChimp has like a really nice pattern library. It goes through their grid systems, typography, everything else. Even this guy, right? So this guy also maintains a repository called Responsive Patterns. And there's new things constantly being added to it. So you guys check that out. It's really, really cool. And there's all kinds of like other plenty of examples out there you can go check out. StyleGuides.io. There's this one designer that's kind of like keeping tab on who's releasing their style guides out there, and you can go out there and review all of them. And you should, because they're super awesome, right? But here's the deal. Some of these style guides, like, they do have some pitfalls as well. First off, like, they're super hard to make. I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't have a lot of time in like my day-to-day job to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna whip together a style guide, right? Like, there's pull down a repository, but it still takes a ton of time to put together your UI and create the style guide. Often in a company, like, they're seen as side projects. Are they gonna help help the bottom line? I don't know. That's up to you and up to your company. A lot of times they're created after project launches. They can be too abstract, and they're often seen as like just designer and dev tools. A lot of times they never become fully finished, or they're incomplete, and they lack methodology. So by now, I'm surprised that nobody's raised their hand and been like, Adam, like, I got an idea, right? Just use a framework. Like, it'll solve all your problems, right? They're modular, they're already responsive, well-tested. Your development time can be super quick, you can launch faster, they're super supported and like way too popular. And you'd be right, all of these things are true. Bootstrap is probably the most liked repository on GitHub right now. It has over 100,000 stars. It's crazy. There's also Foundation by Zerb. Foundation is like this great responsive framework that was put out there, like one of the first ones. It speeds up development time, and it's a great tool to have. Semantic UI is actually doing some really cool things about trying to create a common shared vocabulary across their framework, so that everyone's kind of working with the same nomenclature and has the same understanding. And frameworks are cool, right? Like, deal with it. They're awesome. But they don't always cut it. They don't always cut it. If you're going to use a framework, you have to subscribe to another developer's work, right? A lot of times if you're using a framework, you get lookalike issues. And that brings me back to this guy, right? So as I'm reading Brad Foss' book, he has this anecdote about when he was a kid. He remembered just watching like a ton of sci-fi movies growing up. And the one thing that always bothered him was that everyone was dressed the same. So, he's young, he didn't quite get it. He's like, whatever, like in the future, they just must have solved fashion. But the reality is like this image right here, it depicts like 7 really cool, unique characters, and they're all dressed like tremendously the same. Just like how if like you had really like 7 really cool ideas for websites, and you've skinned them using all like the same framework, they would probably all look tremendously the same, right? As I was like researching more on this, like I came across this site and it made me laugh, right? And this probably more accurately depicts, the issues of lookalikes with frameworks. But it's a pretty website, right? It looks clean, it's fully responsive. but there's nothing really unique about it. It just feels a little too similar. Now, if you take companies like Nike or Puma or Adidas and say like, yeah, go skin all your websites using Bootstrap, they'd all feel substantially the same. And that's not what brands or organizations are looking to do these days, right? Like they want to be unique. So yeah, frameworks are cool. But you got to subscribe to this one size fits all. They might not do everything you want. You have to, worry about if they have the ability to scale. And sometimes there's compatibility issues with like your already existing sites. And the one really clear thing missing from both these frameworks and online style guides is that they lack like a clear methodology. So this brings me to atomic design, right? So what is atomic design? Atomic design is a methodology, something you think about during your workflow. It draws parallels from like the natural world, and it compares them to things that like how we design our interfaces. So in order to wrap your heads around this, you're gonna have to bear with me a minute and think back to high school chemistry, all right? I know it was a while for some of you guys, but we'll get through it, don't worry. All right, so in the natural world, there's things called atoms, right? These two images here are dot diagrams of what those atoms would look like. Are any of you guys remember this from your chemistry homework? All right, so there's one hydrogen atom and there's one oxygen atom. They each have their own unique properties. They can't be broken down any further without losing their meaning, right? So we can combine these atoms. We can form a molecule. In this case, we've created water. You've taken two gases and you've created and combined them to create a liquid. So this molecule starts taking on its own unique properties, right? These molecules combine and they form more complex molecules. And these complex molecules, they compound even further. And they start to form simple organisms. And these simple organisms, they combine some more and they create these complex organisms, right? So it's just humans, or I guess in our case, a meetup group, right? But yeah, so the key takeaway here is that all known matter in the known universe, possibly even other dimensions, spoiler alert for some of you guys that haven't seen Interstellar, are comprised of this finite table of atomic elements, right? Like everything in the universe is made up of these, as far as we know. And it just so happens that we have the same thing as on the web as well. So there's this guy named Josh Duck, and he created this periodic table of HTML elements. And it's really cool. You should go check it out. It's got meta tags, table elements, headings, the whole works. Excuse me. And like the natural world, we also work within this finite list of elements that we have to use in our interfaces, right? So knowing that, we can now apply this process to a methodology comprised of like 5 distinct steps. This methodology can help us craft and develop an interface design that we can use moving forward in our processes. So atoms. Atoms in atomic design are like the building blocks of our interfaces, right? They can't be broken down any further without losing their meaning. They're abstract. They're not useful on their own. They're good for an at-a-glance reference, and they're really nice for seeing like your global styles. So here, we have a label, an input, and a button. And for the developers here, there's not much to this code. It's pretty simple. We can't really do anything with just an input or just a button. They're pretty useless on their own. In our next stage, we have molecules. Molecules are grouped together and bonded together, or they're atoms that are bonded together to create molecules. They're definitely a lot more concrete than atoms, and they do one thing and they do it well. That's the point of them. They serve as the backbone for a more complex system that we're trying to design. So if you combine 3 atoms, like we saw on the last slide, You put them together and you can form a search molecule, right? You can see like the code hasn't changed a whole lot. You know, we've wrapped 3 elements in a form element, and now we have a little more complex molecule. Our third step is organisms. Organisms are groups of molecules and atoms that are joined together to create like a distinct section of your site. A lot of times they're a lot more complex, or they're a lot more like complex molecules. And you know, like sometimes you're going to find yourself debating whether something is a molecule or an organism, and that's all right. They form to become standalone reusable components that you can use throughout your interface. So for example, you have a header, right? You have an atom logo up there. You have a molecule navigation, and you have a molecule search. All of these things are working together to create a header organism, right? And as you can see, the code doesn't change too much either, right? We just added a few things, starting to import some things as well. Loop through navigation items. It's pretty straightforward. And you see these things everywhere, right? Like every website has a header, and it's reused from page to page. And again, all of these things we build, they're comprised of this finite list of elements that we have to use. So next we have templates, which we're talking about chemistry, so this might seem a little bit odd, right? Well, as you move into stage 4 and 5 with the methodology, you have to start thinking about like the client or the stakeholder, right? It'd be weird if you started, you know, calling stage 4 and 5 like, you know, universe and dimensions, and it just wouldn't quite make sense to the clients. So we bring back some common nomenclature like templates. But before I continue, I want to tell you a little bit, you know, that atomic design isn't like this rigid dogma that you have to follow, right? You can tailor it to meet your needs, and that's one of the really cool things about it. It's flexible. For example, like GE adopted the same methodology, but instead of like using atoms, molecules, and organisms, they called theirs principles, basics, and components. As long as the core concepts remain the same, it doesn't matter what you call them. So templates. At templates, we start to see like what these components and atoms start working together, all the molecules. We see them working in a structured layout. They're page level, they're concrete things that you can work with, and eventually they're deliverable, right? So this is what a template looks like. And you can see that you have, you know, quite a few different atoms, organisms, molecules all working together to create this structured layout. And the layout's what's important to us. That's what we're trying to define here. You know, having lorem ipsum text is a good thing. Having placeholder images, it's a good thing, right? Like you get to start, you can take the next stage into pages and start seeing how the design gets, how it works with these structures. So like I said, last we have pages. For us here, I think at Virtual, we're actually gonna call them samples, and we're gonna go with it because it just makes more sense to us. But they're high fidelity. It's a hub for everyone in the process to start looking at what these pages would look like. And you can start to test variations of your templates. You also get to test the effectiveness of the system and specific instances of the template. You can start going through these and looping through them and testing them out accordingly. Right, and bam, so you got like the header image, you got the hero, you got real content starting to go into these templates, and you start to see like what your final design is going to look like. You can start to validate or invalidate your designs, right? You can see if like once you actually throw real content in a header, is it going to wrap down to the next line, or is it going to fit with what your design looks like? And if it doesn't fit, you can go back at like more of an atomic level, and you can start adjusting, and then you can start to see if your adjustments are going to fix the final product. So that's kind of the methodology of atomic design. It's important to know that this isn't a linear process, right? You'll start to see that like when you're working with it, that you're working with something abstract, and you're starting to traverse into like something more concrete throughout the process. You also see as you use this methodology that it starts with us, right? We're the creators. And by the end of the process, you're starting to work, move into those review stages. You're starting to work with clients and stakeholders. But the real work happens in the middle: molecules, organisms, and templates. This is where you're, fine tuning your designs, making sure things are fully responsive. And this is where you learn a lot about your application or whatever interface you're designing. So at this point, you're probably wondering, like, well, how do I build something like this, right? Well, say hello to Pattern Lab. Pattern Lab is a toolkit to help you build and maintain your own atomic design system. It was created by this guy with some help from this guy, right, Dave Olson. And the two of them worked together to create this thing that they're calling Pattern Lab. And it's helping you with your methodology of atomic design. So what is Pattern Lab? Well, it's a component library that you build using their toolkit. It starts off with a lot of patterns if you want it to. So they already have kind of a pattern library built into it. It's a design system builder. And it's also this really, really cool viewport resizer. Additionally, it also has this annotation tool that's really cool that helps you document your designs and your responsiveness as you go. And what it's not. This is not a UI framework, right? It's not Bootstrap, it's not Zerb. This is something you got to build it yourself, okay? So just a toolkit to help you get started. But it's also not dependent of any language, styles, or workflow. You can use BEM, you can use Sass, you can use vanilla CSS, you can do whatever you want to start creating these designs. It's not rigid at all, right? Like you can use Angular with it. It comes with a couple different versions, but you can do whatever you want with this toolkit, and it's going to help you with whatever application or interface that you're building. But it's not just a pattern library either, right? You're going to get some really cool tools that go along with it as far as annotations and includes and stuff. And I'll show you this as we kind of get further into the tool. But it's also not just, it's not a production ready static page generator either, right? This is a toolkit to help you with your applications. It's not like Jekyll. It's not going to spit out this website for you. You're not going to be able to use it just as a standalone website. So there's a ton of documentation out there and demos and everything. You guys can check it out at patternlab.io. Like I said, they have a few different editions and versions for you to play around with. It started with PHP, which I know not a lot of us are PHP users here, but it's all brand new at the time when we started designing this. But there's also some Node versions out there as well, and you can use Gulp and Grunt. And I'm using Webpack with mine. I just kind of threw Webpack in and started messing around with it, and it works fine. And that's the beauty of it, right? At the end of the day, you have this tool, all these different tools at your disposal. And with Pattern Lab, you can bring all those tools in and you can figure out what works for you. So what really matters about Pattern Lab are two things, and it's the builder and the viewer, right? And so I'm gonna switch over to kind of a little bit of a demo here, and we'll see how it goes. So bear with me. Oh. All right. So I'm gonna zoom in here. All right. So this is a very grayscale, simple version of what Pattern Lab releases. If you want to include kind of their demo pattern library, you can start with nothing, right? You can start with. You can create all your own stuff, but this is something that they give you so that you can play around with it and see what works. So like I said, we have our atoms. And in here, we can start to see all the different, the very basics of our building blocks, right? Our building blocks of our interface. So for example, buttons, right? So we have all our different buttons in here. And in molecules, you start to see what these, basic building blocks start building out for you. So you can see a search form, right? Our search form. We got navigation, kind of like a primary navigation. Oh, that's the one footer. Oh, all right, live demos, right? There we go. All right, right, so a hero image, right? So you got a hero image, you got a headline. These things start coming together to form a molecule. And what's really cool is that you can actually show what this code looks like. There we go. In your editor, right? So we have an image, we have a hero image, we have a headline, and you can see what, what it's going to render out to. Furthermore, you can take it into global elements, like we were talking about the header. And here you start to see some things called like annotations, right? And what's really cool is that you start to see where these different atoms or molecules are being used throughout the site. So there's also like this inheritance functionality. So you start to see where these molecules are being inherited. And a homepage, right? Get rid of this. And it's not really easy to see right here, but the reality is that in the interface or in your repository, all of these elements start getting pulled into a template form. So for example, in this one we're using gulp and we're using mustache as kind of our template builder, right? So if you show the pattern info on this, right, we pulled in like the organism header. And then we have our main role, and we have our hero, and we have our list of different, looks like, here we go, our section titles, right? So you start to see things that kind of look like Twitter, stuff like that. And you see what, how these things are inherited. And then you can also see, what the actual rendered HTML looks like as well. So like I said, this is something that you can play around with and really dig into the guts of it. But you can use whatever language you want, and that's what's really cool about it. Finally, yeah, like I said, then you can also use data in JSON to import whatever images you want, right? So we have this final template called the template homepage, and there's a JSON file attached to this, right? And this JSON file starts populating this template with your live images and headlines. It's really cool. I can kind of show you a little bit, kind of how that looks in here. Bear with me, I can't quite see what's going on over here, but like I said, so each one of these patterns that you have within your source, right? So you have your patterns, right? And this is how the menu gets built out as well, right? So you have your atoms, your molecules, and this is all just based on your folder structure. It's all directory structure driven. That's how the building works, which is really neat because you can change it to whatever you want. You can rename this to basics if you want. And then you can order it accordingly. Say you want organisms to be second, and you just make that a 2 instead of like a 1, right? Or a 1 instead of a 2. You can start to rearrange these things based on directory structure rather than having to try to maintain it, like in the JavaScript or something like that. So you can start to see, let's see. So each one of these patterns, they have a markdown file and they have a mustache template. And like I said, it could be a PHP file and a markdown file. It depends on what you're working with. But the markdown file gives you the ability to start documenting what you're doing as you go. So in like forms here, I think we have like let's go into templates. Maybe that'll make more sense. I'm blaming this on John. He didn't have a good way for me to like mirror my screen and do it at the same time. So
yeah, thanks for being the guinea pig on that.
Yeah, no problem. Well, anyways, you get the idea, right? Like there's a markdown file, there's a mustache file. You put whatever you want in here, right? You put your descriptions in here, and what's gonna happen is that when you get back into here and you start showing these patterns, you're gonna have that pattern information documented right here with you, right? And it's really cool, and it helps. It's for everybody at that point. So that's the builder, right? So we have this builder that creates this really cool atomic design, follows methodology that we need, and it has something that we can work with, we can manipulate, and we can build all the way out from these very abstract things all the way out to like a client-facing page, right? The other thing that's really cool about this, I'm gonna bring it out here a little bit, is that we have this really cool viewer. And this is where kind of like we start to really test the rigidness of our responsive design. And so this was also kind of created by Brad Frost, and he created this thing called ISH, right? Because a lot of times when we think about responsive design, we got 320, 480, 768, 1024, right? And that's ridiculous because iPhones and Androids, like they're not all the same, they're all pixel perfect. So he created ISH, and what ISH does is it makes something small-ish, right? And you can keep hitting this small button, and you're going to see all of these different like pixel sizes that you could run into with all the different devices that are out there. Some are for medium. You got different size tablets, you got different size notebooks, MacBooks, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really great tool, and you can actually start to see up here, right, like what these pixels are that you're changing to every time you change it. Right now we're at 822. So yeah, so that's one thing where you get to like really start testing the rigidness of your designs. You can go all the way out to full. There's random spots that you can kind of keep going through and see how it works. There's even a disco mode, right? Just like goes crazy for you, and you get to see like what's this gonna do, right? How's my design gonna work? Man, the hay mode is disabled, but I kind of wanted to show you that. So anyways, there's hay mode as well. And hay mode, what it does is it's kind of like, it starts like real small and it's like, hey, and it goes like all the way out to the end, like really, really slow. So you really get to see like all these different breakpoints that you're working with. That's pretty neat. So yeah, so that's the viewer as well. Like I said, this is supposed to be grayscale. It's supposed to be really kind of boring, right? Like you do that shit yourself. Like you make your own designs, like you use whatever you want, and you create the UI that you want to create, and you use this builder and you use this viewer tool to start testing how that works. All right. So why Pattern Lab, right? So it serves as a hub during the entire design process. Creators, designers, developers, information architects, stakeholders, everyone should be able to use this tool, right? Like you should have this, you should make it a thing in your organization, and you should take care of it, and you should use it because it really creates rich interfaces that are fully responsive. You can easily navigate from abstract ideas to concrete designs. You get to write the code that you want to write, and you get to name it what you want to name it. You're starting to assemble a system rather than deconstruct one later. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really sick of like taking PSDs and just breaking them down and putting them back together, and in IntelliJ, right? It's terrible. It encourages flexibility and fluidity, and like I said, with the annotations, like you get to document it as you go, and it becomes like this really useful tool for stakeholders. I know for a fact like BAs like are super stoked about it. They're like, oh man, like I know what I'm supposed to do with like this little piece. And they can start to think about how those pieces will work together as well, and you guys can all kind of start thinking creatively, right? All right, so why am I here today talking to you guys about atomic design at an Angular meetup, right? You guys probably thought I was going to have some like Angular code and something to go through. Well, I don't, and I'm sorry, but if you have been paying attention, there's like a pretty clear parallel on how we think about developing interfaces using Angular and how we should be thinking about how we design them, right? Like how we should be working with our clients and working with our designers to create components. Oh, sorry. So I encourage you to take these learnings today, apply them to your development techniques, check out Pattern Lab, it's super cool. Share them with your design teams, right? Like this is a great tool for all of you guys to use. Because the real reason you're here today is that we're all trying to create like more beautiful interfaces. We all want to have better interactive experiences on the web. And at the end of the day, like we all share this overall goal for making the web a better place. So lastly, I got to give up this guy one last time. check him out at Brad Frost, super cool guy. As he would say, work hard, don't be an asshole, and share what you know. I bought his ebook for $10. It's a really good read. It's not a real long read. It's a fun read. So I recommend that. Or if you want to cut your fingers on a paperback, you can get that for $20. So thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, let me know. We can go through anything you guys want to check out. All right, no questions.
So, I don't know, you didn't mention this. Brad Frost did a series of podcasts. It's called the Style Guide Podcast. They're very good. He talks about performativity and pattern lab in there. Is that an add-on? I didn't see it when you were demoing.
Performativity?
The performance, like how much load it's taking to load the elements.
So what the builder does, it creates kind of like this rendered version of HTML pages, right? And there's a whole list, and you can see them as, oops. Right, you can view them in a new window, right? And you can see what they look like, and they become basically basically what they are is that they're iframed in, right? There's the pattern library builder, and that gives you the viewer, right? And then you load in your interface with it within there. So as far as performativity, I guess, yeah, there is some bloat to it, just because you are loading a frame within a frame. But I guess I haven't experienced any issues with it yet. I mean, if you start dumping an Angular and jQuery or all these different things in there, yeah, there could be some performance issues, but I personally haven't run anything. And really, at the end of the day, you're trying to design a responsive interface, not so much. I guess, in my opinion, you're not trying to build a fully performant website that you're out there showing people. This is used as more of an internal tool than it is something you're going to have public facing anyways. Yes, Steven.
Why don't you talk about how we integrated Angular into our pattern lab?
Right. So I was thinking about showing it, but I figured since it's we're not really we're in the early development stages of things things that haven't released yet. So so what I've done is I've dropped Pattern Lab right into our Angular application, right? And it serves as kind of this thing that we're building out another public-facing app using the dependencies and the same we're using SAS, the same SAS code that we're using in our application. So we're actually developing it in parallel, right? So we have our web app folder that has all of our Angular stuff and has all of our SAS, and then we have our Style App application, which then has just kind of another Webpack config file in it, and then we're inheriting all these dependencies and we're building it out. We're doing two different builds, right? We're building out our Style application and we're building out our full application all within the same directory. So sharing all the dependencies. You do actually, you have to write a little extra code for, your patterns, right? That's the only duplication there. But we're actually pulling in, Angular. We use Angular UI in some of our stuff, so I can actually pull in those dependencies right into Pattern Lab, load that up into a bundle, and share all of those dependencies across both our Angular application and our Style application. So it's really cool. And like I said, that's the beauty of Pattern Lab is you can drop it in basically anywhere, use whatever kind of code you want. You can share those dependencies across both. Anybody else? All right.
Well, two of the issues brought up around frameworks were about knowing whether or not they can scale and knowing what the performance is. Those were some of the possible detractors for frameworks. But I didn't hear anything mentioned about that around the patterns.
Well, right, because you start with your own patterns, right? You're building it yourself. So if you're building performant and scalable solutions,
How do you measure that?
yeah, that's, I mean, how do you measure like your application versus a bootstrap application, right? Like the idea is that, like I said, that you kind of do that stuff yourself. Yeah, like I said, frameworks are cool, right? Like, and they do serve a purpose. You have to weigh whether the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, or vice versa, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any ideas or any tips about what you've done to measure performance or understand scalability.
Well, I mean, since being at Virtual, like we've written a couple different applications, and I can tell you, we've used Bootstrap for one of them, and it really weighed down our application. We ended up starting to pull pieces of Bootstrap for our mobile application because we wanted to scale it down because the whole Bootstrap thing was too much in itself. Eventually, we realized that we were still pulling in too much stuff. So we actually just kind of pulled the pieces that we were using out of Bootstrap and we dropped them into our own SAS files, right? Or our own JavaScript files, whatever. But yeah, we didn't need everything. It's mobile applications are a lot, less robust a lot of the times than desktop applications. So in order for us to do that, we had to just pick and choose and cherry pick what we needed. So we were, basically writing our own custom code, which is what, atomic design is all about, right? You do that stuff yourself. And like I said, the other thing that I just think is great about it is, using your own nomenclature, right? Like, how many times have you used dash button or whatever, and your styles don't look right because you got a bootstrap pull on or something like that, or you have to remember not only your own nomenclature, but you got to remember bootstraps. And here at Virtual, like I namespace a lot of stuff VW just because I hate when they stomp on each other. And if you're writing your own framework or your own responsive CSS for it, then you don't have to worry about that. So is anyone disappointed I didn't show Angular code? All right. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys having me up here.